The Week in Doubt, episode 352. Hey everyone, I'm Philip Anthony Albertelli, and this, of course, is The Week in Doubt, a podcast for atheists, agnostics, and whoever. Alright, so before we begin, I'd like to quickly take care of some Facebook shoutouts. We have Bob Doucette, Lorena Novak-Bollardi, Darren Moore, Gregoria Stanley, Danielle Turner, Klaus Bukowski, and Petra Burnett. And I think after that, I recognize the name. So that must be where we last left off. So thanks everyone for the new likes. It's very much appreciated. I think we're actually kind of stagnant there for a bit. I actually may have even lost a couple of likes. What the? I'm like, what's that? That's my dog. My Chihuahua is in the room with me. And she's on like 2 different heart medications. And she still has this kind of unsettling cough. Right, Olive? What's going on? Okay. So I am going to cover a few coronavirus stories in this episode. But don't worry, I'm going to take it, try to keep the mood light. Because I know everyone's probably, if anything, looking for a little, temporary escape from being constantly inundated with news about the virus and having to, worry about all the precautions we have to take, etc., and wondering when life is going to return to normal. So I am going to, touch on it, but like I said, I'm going to try to keep things kind of light and humorous. And speaking of the coronavirus, White Claw virus, Jack Daniels country cocktail virus, Zima virus. Remember Zima? I know it's not named after the drink. Come on. But actually, I think it's called the coronavirus because under an electron microscope, I believe it appears, it's spherical looking with a series of protuberances around it that almost give it a kind of halo effect, similar to, the sun's corona or something like that. Corona from the, I want to say Latin, for wreath or crown. Kind of reminds me of one of those round dog toys with the little rubber bumps all over them. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so speaking of the virus, right before I sat down to record, and this is like the 3rd time it's happened to me, I'll spend like 45 minutes on like a grocery or supermarket website with the plan to have it delivered to my place. And, I get kind of really into it. I start looking forward to actually, consuming all the groceries I'm picking out. So, yeah, like 40 minutes or something. Then you get to the very end and it's like, oh, sorry, no time slots available. Then you keep going back, still no slots available. I was just venturing out like once a week to do my grocery shopping in person. Does that sound weird? In person. At your local supermarket. But, I'm not trying to scaremonger. What I said in the last episode still holds true, I think. Most of us, that sounds kind of grim. Most of us will be all right. Some of us might not make it through. But, just given the seriousness of the virus and that more and more cases are popping up in Massachusetts, I'm like, maybe I'll just play it safe and have groceries delivered. And I expected there to be, some delays or some difficulty having groceries delivered due to just this kind of unprecedented strain. So many people staying inside and opting to have, things delivered to them. And it's crazy. Just you can see the effect it's had on Amazon. And like I was saying with, all these different supermarkets, usually it'd be easy peasy, order something from Amazon. It gets to your house in 2 days, sometimes even sooner. Amazon Fresh is under normal conditions supposed to be like within 2 hours, like a 2-hour delivery window. So this is nuts. I've even noticed with non-food items, it seems to be just having an effect on Amazon Prime in general, just because all this, all this crazy unprecedented demand. I did have a little bit of luck with Amazon Prime Pantry though. Prime Pantry is, it's similar to Amazon Fresh, except they only deliver kind of, like dry goods, some household essentials and foodstuffs that, you don't have to worry about, expiring anytime soon, like cookies, crackers, breakfast cereal, soft drinks, stuff like that. And I did place a Prime Pantry order, and I think they're just trying to, play it safe by not giving an optimistic estimation of when it will get to you. So I ordered it like a week ago or something, and it said it wouldn't arrive till like April 2nd. And then it came early. I only had to wait like a few days for it. So that might be something you want to think about if you're also struggling to find, a place that will actually deliver to you. Yeah, it's just crazy. So I went to like Stop and Shop's Peapod. I almost said Peapad. My dog uses Peapads. Yeah, the Peapod website there. And it's like even a week out, it's just all the delivery slots are taken. I tried like Shaw's, and they want you to create an account, but no matter how elaborate of a password you try, I even did like that thing where you let Apple choose a really elaborate password for you, and no matter what you type in, it would say the password was already taken. And I think maybe they're just probably overwhelmed by all the demand and website traffic or whatever. Yeah, and then Wegmans. I tried Wegmans and, picked out all the food I wanted. Like I said before, like an idiot, spent like 45 minutes. And then you get to the very end and you're hoping against hope that they're going to have a slot open. Nope, no available openings. So I was talking to a family member, and they actually got lucky, and they just kept going back every once in a while and refreshing the page, and they finally just stumbled upon an open delivery window or whatever. But what a boring episode. I'm like 7 minutes in and I'm talking about Amazon Prime Pantry and shit. Oh my God. And I had something else I was going to mention, concerning the virus. And I said, at the top of the show, I was going to try to keep this, kind of light. And this definitely isn't light, but, I'll try to deliver the news in my usual kind of silly, self-deprecating way. Yeah, so I had the file for unemployment. It's pretty crazy. So, like, a week ago now, we were finishing up one job. I work for my family's construction business. Well, technically general contracting business, home remodeling, that kind of thing. Actually, my father's retired, so I pretty much work for one of my older brothers who, took over the business. And we were wrapping up one job, set to start a new one, and in Newton, Mass. And so that morning, I'm driving to the job, and it was really weird. It was airy because, the highway was so empty. Usually to get from my town to Newton, because we do a lot of jobs in Newton, with the bumper-to-bumper traffic, it can take like almost an hour sometimes. And there was like almost no one else on the highway, just very sparse. Here and there you'd see like a few other cars. It kind of reminded me of The Walking Dead, where Rick wakes up and all the highways are just eerily empty and everything. But yeah, so it only took me like 15 minutes to get to the job site. Well, I almost got to the job site, and there was something almost kind of ominous in his tone. My brother called me on my cell phone, And I know here in Massachusetts, they're starting to really clamp down on people driving while talking or whatever. And they've actually made it a law that if you're going to talk while driving, it has to be hands free. And I used to get kind of just like anxious when someone would uh, call me anyway. Well, especially while I'm on the highway because I don't want anything distracting me. I've never felt comfortable talking while driving. But I'm like, oh, I guess I have to pick it up. And he's like, Phil, are you listening to the radio? And I'm like, yeah. And I meant I'm listening to music. He goes, they're shutting everything down. I think they're shutting everything down. And I'm like, oh, you meant like news radio? No, I'm like, I didn't hear anything about it. And it really sounded like kind of ominous, like dialogue you would hear in some kind of apocalyptic dystopian sci-fi movie about like the end of the world or something, or some kind of viral pandemic. And yeah, it was really kind of airy. And he told me I better turn around and file for unemployment right away as soon as I get home. uh Crazy stuff. And my father built this business up from scratch. And so he has a lot of history dealing with building departments and, town halls and all that stuff. So he talked with my brother and he was saying there's still a chance that, what we're doing, construction or remodeling might get by as an essential service. So there might not necessarily be a mandate that our type of business has to shut down. But then on top of that, it was going to be a kitchen remodel. The plumbers we were going to use, this is pretty wild, turns out at their last job, their last residential job or whatever, they were doing work for a couple. And it turns out that both of them, the wife and husband, tested positive for the virus. So that's pretty crazy. So that was an extra thing that was, even if we were allowed to go forward with the work, that kind of threw a kind of monkey wrench in the gears. So it's pretty crazy. So yeah, I had to file for unemployment, which sucks because you get less than half of what would be your usual weekly pay. So that blows. And what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The only other time, I've been working since my late teens, and the only other time I ever had to file for unemployment was for a brief period back during that Great Recession of, what was it, 2008? Yeah, because you can imagine, people are really trying to save their money, so there's not going to be a high demand for people spending, large sums of money to have, work done on their homes. Yeah, and I think that might have lasted a few weeks. That was the only other time since I've been, in the workforce that I ever had to do that. And it's funny, this just came back to me because I kind of half jokingly mentioned, like dystopian futures, the apocalypse or whatever. Apocalypse from the Greek, to reveal, I think. But anyway, so recently, and I may have mentioned this on the last episode, I can't remember. I had been talking to one of my best friends slash bandmate, one of the guitarists. I still say my band or our band, even though we haven't practiced in, several years now. And we were just having this back and forth discussion via Facebook Messenger. And I remember saying, we're talking about how crazy this whole thing is. I remember saying to him that for some reason, if something else big were to happen, I thought it would be like another massive terror attack, some kind of 9/11 scale thing or something like that. Or maybe even as kind of extreme or over the top as this might sound, possibly something like a nuclear exchange. And we can remember, in the recent past, not that long ago, there were concerns about whether or not North Korea could possibly reach the US or whatever. But for some reason, I wasn't really afraid of some kind of global pandemic because I felt like, for some weird reason, maybe just complacency, I don't know, or hubris or whatever, arrogance or whatever. I thought that, we didn't have to worry about, some kind of viral pandemic or whatever. I just didn't see that happening. It seemed too kind of 28 days later-ish. There's all those sci-fi movies about like apocalyptic scenarios where a virus sweeps the globe or whatever. So I never really, for some reason, I never really thought, and I'm not saying I think that's what's going to happen. I think this thing is eventually going to run its course, or we're going to get it under control to the point where we can start to live our normal lives again, hopefully sooner than later. You know what I mean? But history is full of cases of, pandemics or whatever. And eventually we do kind of, get them under control and life goes on. So I'm not saying I think it's going to, be this completely catastrophic nightmare type of thing. But yeah, this is the first time in a while where I think we've had our complacency really, shooken up or whatever by a disease or a pandemic like this. So it kind of took me by surprise, even though it probably shouldn't. In recent history we've had things like AIDS, Ebola, SARS. This is the first time in a long time. I think I said in the last episode, I'm old enough to remember when AIDS was at its peak, and the hysteria, the way it changed our way of life, where people were afraid to shake hands and things like that. This is like, so this is the first thing on that kind of scale that I can remember in a very long time. And I think even with AIDS, that didn't keep people inside, where people were afraid to do food shopping or whatever, So yeah, kind of wacky times. But like I said, I think we should just try to take logical precautions for ourselves and for others. But while we're doing that, we should try not to let it, really get to us or threaten or disrupt our well-being. Probably easier said than done, I know. But, we should try to keep things in perspective and enjoy the downtime. And I've been trying to put, a kind of positive spin on this. I've even tried to, been looking at this way, that this downtime can be like a transformational period for me, where I can try to, maybe accomplish some stuff that I usually don't have time to work on, or kind of, including the show, I can do more with the show. And, as cliche as it might sound, I can take this time to kind of work on myself, so to speak, what I mean? So it's kind of good that way. The fact that my income might be more than slashed in half for the foreseeable future. I don't know. I'm hoping that, that's not good, obviously, but I'm hoping that maybe, if my brother gets things worked out with the situation with the plumbers, maybe the building department will say, hey, it's a go, you can do it. That hopefully this unemployment thing won't last for too long, But let's get into some topics. And this first one is just kind of fun and silly. I remember I had the video going on my computer, but the sound was muted. And it was just these random videos that were being, played, that were in a queue or whatever. And I saw what appeared to be an empty toilet paper tube receiving a kind of pharaonic burial. A toilet paper tube with a face drawn on it being like slid inside a little cardboard pyramid. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I looked into it. And supposedly there's this mother who's been kind of embarrassing her son by posting these videos of providing these kind of elaborate burial rituals for empty toilet paper tubes, because everyone's obsessing over toilet paper or whatever. It's actually pretty funny, and for the YouTube version, I'll try to see if I can, capture the embedded video so you can see what I'm referencing. But it's pretty funny. So she did like a Viking burial, a funeral pyre, like I said, a kind of pharaonic burial. So just like funny, lighthearted stuff. I thought that was pretty funny. And here's this site called radio.com covered it. Mom embarrasses son with videos of toilet paper funerals for empty rolls. With people stocking up on toilet paper across the country, one woman is making sure each roll gets its recognition for all the essential work they're doing amid the coronavirus pandemic. After going through a round of toilet paper, Jacqueline Larson isn't just discarding the cardboard roll in the trash like a barbarian. No, Larson has decided to thank the roll for its service by honoring the bathroom essentials with a proper funeral and burial. In one clip, a cardboard cylinder with a face drawn on it is removed from its holder and wrapped in toilet paper. The mummified roll is then placed in a cardboard sarcophagus replete with hieroglyphics and a drawn image of an ancient pharaoh on the outside. The sarcophagus is then laid to rest inside a cardboard pyramid for all eternity. Hey everyone, I'm back. I actually didn't start recording last night till like, I don't know, it might have been around midnight or 1 or something. So I finally surrendered to sleep and decided to continue it the next day, today. So it's Sunday the 29th. And there is a little bit of good news. While I was lying in bed, before I actually fell asleep, I'm like, let's try to order groceries one more time. And so this might have been like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. But I was finally able to order groceries via Instacart from both Wegmans and Market Basket. So I guess sometimes it kind of pays to be, like a dysfunctional, neurotic night owl. The bad news is that both orders are projected to not get here until Friday. Hey, but at least they're ordered, And I have cereal and yakisoba noodles and non-dairy ice cream and lots of other crap to keep me going for the time being. Okay, so I remember I already covered the toilet paper burials or whatever last night. And so here's another story. And like I said, I'm going to try to keep it light. And it is a serious topic, but it's also so absurd. It's kind of inappropriately humorous. And there's a lot of disturbing stories like this coming out. Just stupid, immature people putting other people at risk. This one is from an ABC affiliate, and it's entitled Woman Accused of Twisted Prank Coughing on Produce in Grocery Store. Loss of $35,000 worth of goods. Police do not believe the Pennsylvania woman had the coronavirus, but she was tested as a precaution. And this is kind of scary. Maybe it will explain it further down. I don't know if she's a nurse or something, or a healthcare professional, but it looks like she's wearing blue scrubs in the photo. Let's see. A woman is facing criminal charges for purposely coughing on fresh food inside an area grocery store. Police in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, filed charges Thursday morning against Margaret Serco, I think it is, age 35, of Hanover Township. Did I just dox her? Sorry, man. She is facing charges of criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, retail theft, and terroristic threats. Wow. District Judge Joseph Halsey told Serco the charges she's up against while she was inside a police vehicle. Police say Serco went into the Gerardy's store along the is it Suchi or Suchi? You guys know I'm horrible with pronunciations. Here we go. Parkway near Natticoke or Natticoke. I don't know what that is. It looks like it's probably a Native American name. Wednesday afternoon, where workers say she intentionally coughed on racks of fresh produce, bakery items, and the meat case. According to arrest papers, Serco said, "I have the virus. Now you're all going to get sick," before coughing on the food displays. And so, yeah, like I said, she's wearing blue scrubs in the picture or the embedded video, but I don't know if she's a medical professional or what the deal is. Unless she like stripped naked and ran around coughing on everything and they had to put some clothes on her. Now, I don't know. It's pretty weird. It also looks like she's wearing a plastic band around her wrist, the type you'd get in a hospital or something. So I don't know. Yeah, and so it's talking about how, they basically thought the wisest thing to do would be to just throw away all the potentially contaminated food. And yeah, the loss is estimated at more than $35,000, including organic produce, bakery items, and meats, as well as employees sanitizing the shelves. So yeah, I don't know. You either have to be incredibly immature or just, completely lacking in consideration, just, I don't know. Obviously, I was talking about how this has affected me. And, as an anecdotal example, I've had trouble trying to procure groceries. And so these places are already struggling to meet the really increased demand caused by this virus and the surrounding fear and precautions that need to be taken and everything. And then you have people like this making it even worse, and there's perfectly good food that ends up going to waste, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance that she's actually mentally ill or has some kind of, mental or mood disorder or something. Or just really emotionally mature and starved for attention or lashing out at, I don't know. And then this is just batshit crazy Darwin Award shit, man. There's something called the, coronavirus toilet challenge or something like that. And when I started recording today, I was under the impression that it was only one person who had done this, but I guess it really has taken up, I was going to say viral, no pun intended, a kind of viral challenge where a number of people, kind of social media influencers, I think I almost said influencers, which actually would have been somewhat clever. But of course, this isn't just influenza. This is specifically the COVID-19 virus or whatever. So this is from the Miami Herald News. Model who licked toilet seat in coronavirus challenge is unbothered by outrage. In the clip, the New Jersey native wearing sunglasses on her head leans down, licks the seat generously, as if it were ice cream, then gives the peace sign. And then there's so many different results here. New York Post influencer says he has coronavirus days after licking toilet. So if it wasn't for, the fact that they're putting innocent people at risk, through if we don't know he necessarily got it directly from the toilet, could be coincidence. But the fact that he was willing to expose himself to this and then, nonchalantly going about his business and exposing others, it's shitty and stupid. And then that same woman that was mentioned, licking the toilet seat generously in that video. I'll see if I don't know if you guys necessarily want it, but I'll see if for the YouTube version, if I can put a photo or, capture a bit of video for you guys. The same woman, I guess, says that she wants to cough on Dr. Phil now. Wow, and here's another story. This is from Yahoo News. Man arrested for allegedly coughing on grocery worker. And I think this article is referring to the same woman. A TikToker licked an airplane toilet seat for clout. Jesus, man. So I just left the computer for a moment, and I just noticed the news saying that Instacart shoppers are planning a massive nationwide strike tomorrow. Wow, both my both my groceries that I mentioned earlier, both my deliveries are supposed to be coming via Instacart, and I get it. I mean, part of it is they fear for their own safety because I guess they're not getting like the masks and gloves they need, and they're kind of like on the front lines in the sense that they actually have to go into the supermarkets, they have to go to, you know, doors and deal with people who may or may not be, infected or whatever. So yeah, I get it, but nevertheless, I'm still kind of pissed and bummed out, and this scares me, in the sense that people were already having trouble, acquiring groceries. Uh, and at least we had things like Instacart, that could bring groceries to our doors for us. And if they just strike, this is going to make groceries that much harder to acquire. And it's kind of scary because does this mean that people actually might be going without food? I mean, you can still, of course, chance it and go to the supermarket like I did a couple of times. Uh, but new cases keep popping up, and a trip to a grocery store, even during the kind of off hours, like I would usually wait till late at night, so there'd most likely be less people, and there's still always people. So you're mixing and mingling, no matter how hard you try. Like when I was shopping, I was trying to keep like a good distance from everyone else. But you're still inside this. No matter how spacious a grocery store might be, you're still in the confines of this one building with a good deal of other Homo sapiens, breathing in each other's air and everything, and probably touching products on the shelf that other people have touched. And I always try to use the self checkout, but it seems kind of extra risky if you actually have to deal with a cashier because you're face to face with another person, money's changing hands, stuff like that. And who knows, so if you go grocery shopping, you could be exposing yourself, or you could be taking the chance that if you're a carrier and you don't know it, you're asymptomatic, you could be exposing other people and putting them at risk. You know what I mean? So this is kind of crazy. I mean, I get from the point of view of the Instacart workers. I mean, I totally get it. It makes sense that they would be concerned about their own, safety and health. And not just them. I'm sure all of them have families and friends. And so if they get infected, they could possibly, be exposing the nearest and dearest. So I get that. And also, I don't know if maybe they might be striking for, higher pay while they're at it. And obviously, striking at a critical time when you're really needed, I think that probably increases your leverage, you know what I mean? But I don't know if they're concerned with pay or not. But it seems like, for the most part, it's about coronavirus protections. And just to keep it real, man, I don't know if how soon that will get resolved, because medical professionals are having trouble acquiring needed supplies like masks, etc. And I was listening to the news earlier, and they were talking about doctors at hospitals in some cases actually covering themselves with plastic trash bags because their medical gowns or whatever, they're in short supply of those. So if doctors are having trouble getting their hands on masks and gloves, I don't know how just realistically how these Instacart employees, how they're going to acquire those kinds of supplies. I thought it was pretty cool. I heard that people were actually using 3D printing to help create masks. That's and donating them or whatever. That is really cool. And that kind of it's almost like we're on the way to the replicator on Star Trek. Wow, so that's pretty cool. But I don't know. I hope all this gets resolved. And I was just thinking, it's funny because of the nature of my work. Working for the family remodeling business, we're always tearing apart walls and working with insulation, mixing up batches of cement where like cement dust gets kicked up in the air. So it's just part of our daily thing or whatever, to wear the little 3M masks that you can buy at a building supplier or whatever, or a hardware store. So I have like some used ones of those in my car, and I also have two used like respirator things. So I'm like ready for the Mad Max wasteland. Yeah, if they weren't used, I would donate any masks I had. It's funny because it's just I think about all the times I've taken it for granted how easy it was to get those masks. Whenever I'd go to the lumber yard for my brother or whatever, he'd be like, "Oh, I'll pick up some masks," and it'd be like a whole 4 foot, display of different masks and ventilators and stuff. I don't know if ventilator. I'm probably using that. Maybe I mean respirator, but not just the disposable kind of cloth-like masks, but the rubberized ones that have like the discs on the sides that filter the air or whatever. And here's I included this link in my notes. This is a completely unscripted episode, as you can probably tell, but I did, I kind of collected, curated a bunch of links to, stories I wanted to talk about. This is from Fox 5. I don't know, which specific affiliate this is, where it is, but it says, police investigate disturbing video of teens coughing on produce. Purcellville, Virginia. Police in Virginia are warning of a quote-unquote disturbing trend after a group of teens were caught on camera coughing on produce at a grocery store, then posting it on social media. This all comes amid the growing coronavirus pandemic, which continues to spread across the United States and around the world. And here's a quote: "We have learned that this appears to be a disturbing trend on social media across the country, and we ask for help from parents to discourage this behavior immediately," Purcellville police said in a Facebook post Thursday. And so, like, this, as well as some of the other stuff I was talking about, the people licking the toilet seats, coughing on... This reminds me of, like, young edgelord stuff. And I can speak from personal experience. I was a teenage edgelord long before the term edgelord was coined. You know what I mean? I was kind of the type of person that kind of liked to lash out at society and do stupid stuff because I thought it was cool and rebellious or whatever. Yeah, don't do it, man. It's just stupid and shitty, and at the end of the day, it just makes you look fucking dumb. Okay, so here's a story from The Friendly Atheist, and it's by Hemant Mehta himself. Ignoring virus in Illinois church held services. Now most of the congregation is sick. On March 15th, when COVID-19 concerns were well established in Illinois, the Life Church in Glenview, just north of Chicago, held a large event anyway. 80 people were present for an out-of-town speaker. That sounds weird, like I never encountered the phrase out of town before. 80 people were present for an out-of-town speaker. Okay, now 43 of those worshipers are sick, including the pastor. And 10 of them have tested positive for the coronavirus, including the speaker, who is currently hospitalized. And I have to admit, I was really ready to just tear into these people, you know what I mean? Because I thought we'd hear a lot of stuff about, oh, God is going to keep us safe. He won't let us get sick or what, it's something like that. But it actually sounds like the pastor, at least going by this one statement, that it wasn't that he necessarily thought God was going to keep everyone safe. He was just kind of, complacent and not as informed as he should have been. And it seems like he seems like a somewhat reasonable guy. So it says, Pastor Anthony Locascio, who has been pastor at the Life Church for 11 years, said he thought about whether to hold the service, But at the time, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases was low, and a stay-at-home order had not yet been imposed. Plus, he had an out-of-town speaker coming. We had a guest speaker. We were promoting it, he said. We made the announcement, if you're sick, stay home. We didn't know. No one knew. So it seems like he's not so blinded by, superstition or whatever, that he would completely ignore, common sense precautions. He did tell people, if you're sick, stay home. But obviously, like I said, you could argue that he was irresponsible, that he should have erred on the side of caution, and maybe he didn't do his due diligence in regard to, researching the nature of this virus and what kind of, precautions should be taken. But I'm actually, for some weird reason, I'm kind of strangely relieved that at least he admits that, if someone's sick, they should stay home. So he recognizes that viruses are real and that, that Sky Daddy can't protect you from them necessarily. So that's kind of refreshing in a weird way. I really did expect like a whole bunch of superstitious religious mumbo jumbo people, stupidly claiming that God could, that God would shield them from the virus. Okay, then there was one last thing I was going to talk about, and don't worry, I'm not pushing veganism on anyone. I'm not even, fully vegan or whatever yet. But I posted a couple of videos from this guy on the Weekend Out Facebook page. So this cool dude actually bears kind of an uncanny resemblance to Henry Cavill. There's this charismatic vegan dude named James Aspey. And he has a couple of videos on his YouTube channel that kind of fall into the wheelhouse of atheism. And I think often, there's this kind of intersection of atheism and veganism. Just tends to be the case that a lot of people who are vegan are also kind of, atheistic or whatever. And so this guy, James Aspey, he, like myself, pretty much believes that religions are just man-made belief systems, that there's no validity to the supernatural faith claims of any of the, the world's religions or whatever. And he pretty much, kind of comes across like a hardcore atheist when he's talking about Christianity or whatever, thinks the Bible is basically just an ancient book of, fables or whatever. And he isn't, you can tell he's a bit into Eastern philosophy or at least meditation, but you can be into, like myself, you can be into Eastern philosophy and meditation without taking any of the supernatural baggage literally. You know what I mean? I think just meditation, just things like meditation and yoga, they do have spiritual associations, but in and of themselves, you don't have to believe in any kind of higher power or anything, and you can use them as kind of tools to better yourself. Like yoga is a good form of exercise. Meditation, I think, can be beneficial for your health or your mental health, your stress levels, things like that. And so it was interesting. I think these two videos that I posted on Facebook were actually related. The first one shows him he's on stage giving a lecture about veganism, and he's confronted by a Christian in the audience, and he goes back and forth, and he thought in retrospect that he kind of lost his cool. I thought he handled himself well, and I thought he made some really good points, and it didn't bother me that you could tell he was kind of worked up, I thought he had a right to be kind of passionate about the points he was making. And afterwards, like in retrospect, he posted another video where he kind of apologizes for losing his cool and whatnot. And I think it's kind of been a while, but I used to mention Theodicy a lot on this show. And Theodicy basically means, trying to reconcile the iniquity and suffering in the world with the idea of a good God, And the horror of the food chain is something I've cited a lot for, I don't see a good God behind all of this, nature, red in tooth and claw. And as I don't want to sound like a broken record, I've mentioned in the last couple episodes, talked about how, nature, evolution, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's lots of examples of cruelty and horrific carnage, but there's also examples of group solidarity, animals with social structures, even animal altruism and that kind of thing. And it's fun. And once again, not trying to push veganism on you, but these are like even while, I was regularly eating meat with, something of a guilty conscience. This is something I used to think of. It seems like people will often argue for the case that we should be eating meat because it's justified by the food chain, the survival of the fittest and all that. And they'll even, kind of invoke Darwin or whatever. And it's funny, like Darwin himself seemed to be rather bothered by the kind of cruelty and, just the indifferent suffering, nature, red in tooth and claw of like the animal kingdom or whatever. And I think he used to talk about, is it the Ecumenidae, this kind of parasitic insect or whatever. And he'd talk about how much he was bothered by examples like that. And it seems kind of weird to me that people would try to invoke the food chain as a justification, did I say justifier? As a justification for eating meat. When it seems to me, it feels like we almost have a kind of moral duty because of our level of cognizance, how fully aware we are of the horror of the food chain, to kind of, if we want to be compassionate and ethical beings, that to say, holy shit, there's something wrong here, man. There is something off. There's so much suffering and iniquity in the natural world that instead of saying, hey, it's just the nature of things, you know what I mean? To say, we as a species have kind of woken up from the nightmare of all this carnage and able to see all the cruelty and iniquity baked into the cake of the food chain or whatever, and say, I don't want to take part in that anymore, And so, there's this kind of weird reasoning people seem to employ where they're like, tough shit, other animals rip each other apart in the wild, why shouldn't we? And I think the way I voiced it one time, I kind of said that, like, if a lion or some kind of predatory animal was as self-aware as we are, as capable of self-reflection as we are, and still said, screw it. Antelope just tastes too damn good. I'm not going to stop. And of course, some animals like lions, cats, canine, they're pretty much obligate carnivores. Their digestive systems and whatnot are, different than ours. They pretty much, they need to eat meat. Some, of course, supplement their diets with other things in the wild, some like plants, berries, stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make, if an animal was as self-aware as we are and is capable of, deep self-reflection and whatnot as we are, and they could find the nutrition they need in alternate sources, but they still chose to rip other animals apart because they enjoyed the taste, you'd say there's something kind of, morally off there or whatever. And in fairness to religious people, I've often, I've tried to make the point that I think whether you're a non-believer or you're a religious person, you can kind of spin it either way. If you're a religious person, you can say, well, God put these animals here as resources for us, so we have dominion over them. We're the crown of creation. We can do what we want, But at the same time, you could say, well, these animals are God's creation. He wants us to be good stewards of the earth. He wants us to be kind to these animals, even though we're using them as resources or whatever. Like I said, there are actually Christian vegetarians and vegans. And I've mentioned before on the show how I think there's even parts of the Bible that seem to emphasize or encourage kindness to animals, like the story of Balaam and the donkey, the fact that it seems like, in the Garden of Eden, or, even prior to the flood, that people weren't intended to eat animals, that we're supposed to live in kind of peaceful harmony with animals and recognize them as fellow creations of God. You know what I mean? But then it's after the flood, there seems to be this kind of concession or compromise where God reluctantly says he will allow people to eat, animal flesh or whatever. But I think James Aspey was making the point that there doesn't seem to be any religion that strictly says you have to eat meat. You know what I mean? And there's several reasons why I doubt the existence of a higher power or an afterlife or whatever. Definitely doubt the existence of a benevolent or good and moral, personal creator God or whatever. And Theodicy and all that. It's hard for me to kind of try to reconcile the existence of a just God with the suffering and iniquity we see in the world and, in the natural world. And of course, often Christians specifically will say, well, this is because of original sin. This is because of us. We're kind of bad and dirty, it's our fault that everything went south and that the world is as it is. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, that makes God look even worse. It's like the idea that the reason why there's all this suffering in the world is because two people ate the wrong kind of fruit, and now all of us are paying for that. You know what I mean? Where the hell is the justice or, morality in that? It's like as if God was like, this really was going to be this really chill world where all the animals, chilled out together and, but since you ate that piece of fruit, man, I'm going to have all these different animals fucking rip each other to shreds, tearing each other's entrails out. And, where the hell is the morality in that? That's like, that would be a complete, moral abomination or whatever. But there is one thing in particular that really stayed with me from watching James Aspey spar with that Christian in the audience. And he said it kind of beautifully and concisely, I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, if God intended animals to be food, why make them sentient? You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, and that kind of, ties in with what I was just saying. Why would a good and just God make our food capable of fear and suffering, pain, you know what I mean? And there are people out there. Now, this is one of my pet peeves. Sorry for all the F-bombs. I hate this argument. When people try to justify meat eating or, the cruel treatment of animals by saying, oh, animals don't feel pain. I'm not even sure how aware they are. And I think from, an evolutionary standpoint, it's like even ethics and morality aside, it just seems objectively the logical conclusion to come to is that they basically have the same anatomical equipment as us. Vertebrates, they basically wired like we're wired. We all share common ancestors. If an animal has a central nervous system like us, and they behave as if they're capable of pain and fear, the logical assumption or conclusion would be that their pain and fear is genuine, not that they're just kind of philosophical zombies or automatons, you know what I mean? And that reminds me, too, of how I used to be really grossed out by the human body. Well, at least the inside of the human body, you know what I mean? It used to really gross me out to think about the fact that we're basically bags of organs. We have all these different organs and inside us, and just nasty stuff. And I used to think, well, if there's like a god, why not make us like big gummy bears or something? Why not make us like one kind of solid thing with a consciousness inside it? Why all these gross, slithering, slimy entrails and shit like that? You know what I mean? It's kind of like this David Cronenberg-esque body horror nightmare or something going on inside us. But on that cheery note, I guess I'll call it a wrap. Thanks, everyone, as always, for listening. You guys know the drill. You can like the Facebook page. You can follow the show on Twitter. You can check out the YouTube channel. Maybe you're doing that now. If you want to support the show monetarily, probably need it more than ever, since I'm temporarily on unemployment for the foreseeable future until everything goes back to normal, or we get the okay that's all right to do construction again. You can go to patreon.com/theweekindoubt and support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. Or you can also go to Podbean and scroll to the bottom of the Podbean page. There's all that alliteration, and use the PayPal widget to make a one-time donation. But all right, brothers and sisters. And I just want to say, if you've also been laid off or you're having personal money trouble because of this corona situation, don't go out of your way to help me. I want you to think about yourself and your families. But if you're a person that's, doing all right, rolling in the dough, working at home, maybe. All right, until next time.